out here, you mugs. Let somebody rub this man here that knows how.
All right, Shorty.
The flickering glow of Christmas lights, a town blanketed in snow, and a desperate man standing at the edge of a bridge, ready to end it all. It's a Wonderful Life is a holiday classic, but behind its heartwarming message lies a series of untold secrets, shocking twists, and unbelievable mistakes that have been hiding in plain sight. And once you see them, you'll never watch this movie the same way again. Before Hollywood ever got its hands on the story, It's a Wonderful Life was just a heartfelt idea that no one wanted. In 1939, Philip Van Doren Stern penned a short story called The Greatest Gift, a moving tale about a man named George Pratt who, on Christmas Eve, is granted the eerie opportunity to see what the world would be like if he had never been born. It was a story of despair, redemption, and self-worth, but no publisher showed interest. Rejection after rejection piled up, until Stern decided to take matters into his own hands. He printed 200 copies and sent them out as Christmas cards to friends and family. And in a twist of fate, one of those cards found its way to Hollywood. RKO Pictures saw potential and paid Stern $10,000 for the rights, envisioning a film starring Cary Grant. But the story wasn't clicking. Draft after draft failed to capture the magic, and by 1945, the studio gave up and sold the rights. That's when Frank Capra entered the picture. Fresh from directing war propaganda films for the U.S. Army, Capra was looking for something meaningful, something that could uplift audiences. The moment he read Stern's story, he knew this was it. He purchased the rights for the same $10,000 RKO had paid and immediately had one actor in mind, James Stewart. Stewart wasn't just another leading man. He was a decorated war hero who had flown 20 combat missions over Nazi-occupied Europe as a B-24 bomber pilot. The war had changed him, leaving him haunted by what he had seen and done. That darkness found its way into his portrayal of George Bailey, the wide-eyed dreamer slowly worn down by life's burdens, the simmering frustration, the raw breakdown on the bridge. It wasn't just acting. Stewart was channeling his own struggles, making the performance one of the most emotionally authentic in cinematic history. But Stewart wasn't the only actor leaving a lasting impact. Donna Reed, cast as Mary Hatch, wasn't just playing the devoted wife. Her character held the family together, believing in George's potential, even when he couldn't see it himself. Reed, who would later become a television icon, showcased an emotional depth that was rare for female roles at the time. Meanwhile, Lionel Barrymore's portrayal of Mr. Potter, the embodiment of greed and corruption, was so chilling that he remains one of Hollywood's most despised villains. Confined to a wheelchair due to arthritis, Barrymore used his physical limitations to make Potter even more menacing, his every glance dripping with cruelty. And then there was Henry Travers as Clarence, the bumbling yet kind-hearted guardian angel. He wasn't powerful, he wasn't wise, but his unwavering kindness made all the difference. His final words to George, "No man is a failure who has friends," would become one of the most quoted lines in movie history. But what audiences didn't realize is that one simple mistake in that very scene would go unnoticed for decades. The film was filled with jaw-dropping errors that, once spotted, are impossible to ignore. In one scene, George's car mysteriously moves on its own between shots. In another, a pipe in the background suddenly vanishes, as if by magic. And let's not forget the infamous disappearing wreath. One moment it's there, the next, it's gone. But perhaps the most astonishing mistake of all is one so glaring, so obvious, that you'll wonder how anyone ever missed it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Beyond the hidden mistakes, the making of It's a Wonderful Life was anything but wonderful. Liberty Films, the company Capra co-founded to maintain creative control, was risking everything. They borrowed $1.54 million from Bank of America, but the production costs quickly skyrocketed to $3.7 million. It was a massive gamble for a company that had never released a single film. And the pressure wasn't just financial, it was physical. Filming took place in the sweltering California summer heat. The idyllic snow-covered Bedford Falls? It was actually shot in 90-degree weather, causing Stewart to visibly sweat in several key scenes. His emotional breakdown on the bridge? It wasn't just acting. The oppressive heat and exhaustion only made the moment more intense. But the challenges didn't stop there. Creating the illusion of winter was one of the biggest hurdles the production faced. At the time, Hollywood's go-to method for snow was using bleached cornflakes. They looked great on camera, but there was one glaring issue. They crunched underfoot, making it impossible to record dialogue. Capra needed something better. That's when special effects artist Russell Sherman revolutionized Hollywood snow forever. He mixed foamite, a substance found in fire extinguishers, with soap flakes, water, and sugar, creating the first-ever silent artificial snow. The effect was so realistic and innovative that it won a Special Academy Award in 1948. But with innovation came new challenges. This soap-based snow made the set dangerously slippery, turning every step into a potential hazard. The sweltering California heat was unbearable. Cast and crew were drenched in sweat, exhaustion setting in as they filmed what was supposed to be a winter wonderland. Shooting a Christmas movie in the middle of summer was already a challenge, but the relentless 90-degree heat made it nearly impossible. At one point, director Frank Capra had to halt production just to give everyone a chance to recover. But despite the brutal conditions, he pushed forward, determined to bring Bedford Falls to life. James Stewart almost walked away from the role entirely. Fresh from serving in World War II, he wasn't sure he even wanted to act anymore. The horrors he had witnessed weighed heavily on him, leaving him uncertain about his future in Hollywood. It was Lionel Barrymore, the man who played the ruthless Mr. Potter, who convinced him to stay. Looking back, Stewart later admitted that It's a Wonderful Life wasn't just another film to him. It became his favorite project in a career that spanned over 6 decades. To make Bedford Falls feel authentic, Capra went beyond the standard Hollywood set. Instead of using generic studio backlots, he had an entire town constructed from scratch. The process took 2 months and covered 4 acres of RKO's Encino Ranch. More than 70 buildings were built, each designed to look aged and lived in. The main street alone stretched 300 yards, about the size of 3 city blocks. There was even a factory district, a row of small businesses, and a parkway lined with 20 full-grown oak trees that had been carefully transplanted onto the lot. Every tiny detail was meticulously crafted to make Bedford Falls feel like it had existed for generations. But for all the effort that went into creating this fictional town, it didn't last. By the 1950s, RKO sold the ranch to developers, and most of Bedford Falls was demolished to make way for housing. Today, only 2 locations from the film remain. The swimming pool from the famous dance scene, still in use at Beverly Hills High School, and Martini's house, located in La Cañada, Flint Ridge. Everything else has vanished, erased by time. But one thing that still remains: a series of bizarre mistakes hiding in plain sight, mistakes that change the way you see this classic film forever. One of the funniest slip-ups happened during the chaotic Charleston dance contest. As George Bailey and Mary Hatch danced near the gym floor, completely oblivious to the opening trap door beneath them, the moment was already full of energy. But there's something most viewers never notice. James Stewart's toupee nearly came off. By 1946, Stewart was in his late 30s and had started using hairpieces to maintain his leading man look. The combination of wet hair and sudden movement caused the piece to briefly slip out of place, revealing his real hairline. With everything happening in the scene, the mistake went unnoticed, and Capra, known for embracing imperfections that added realism, left it in the final cut. Then there's the infamous Uncle Billy blooper, one of Hollywood's most accidental yet unforgettable moments. The scene takes place right after George and Uncle Billy finish a conversation. As Uncle Billy drunkenly stumbles away, a loud crash is heard off-screen. The sound wasn't planned. A crew member had accidentally knocked over a stack of props, creating a massive racket. But instead of breaking character, actor Thomas Mitchell instantly improvised, slurring out, I'm all right," and kept walking. Capra loved the authenticity of the moment so much that he decided to keep it. As a reward for the accidental magic, he even gave the crew member a $10 bonus, equivalent to about $150 today. What was supposed to be a mistake became one of the film's most memorable moments. However, not all mistakes were as charming. Some were just downright odd. In one scene, George Bailey is at the building and loan office, chatting with Violet Bick. As he listens to her, he holds a pipe in his mouth. But in the blink of an eye, as he reaches for money to hand her, the pipe completely vanishes. No transition. No explanation. Just gone. Continuity errors like this happened often in classic films, mostly because scenes were shot out of order and minor details got lost in the shuffle. A simple oversight, perhaps, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. And then there's the ice cream that defies all logic. Early in the movie, young George Bailey serves Mary Hatch a dish of ice cream topped with coconut. The problem? She specifically says she doesn't want coconut. But what happens next is even stranger. George gets distracted, running an errand that takes over an hour. This is confirmed by a phone call from Mr. Gower. Yet when he returns, Mary is still sitting at the counter with her ice cream, completely untouched, still perfectly frozen. No melting, no puddle, just a pristine scoop that had somehow defied the laws of nature. The likely explanation? Scenes were filmed separately, and no one thought to swap in a melted version of the ice cream. Back in 1946, continuity wasn't monitored as closely as it is today, and small details like this often went unnoticed. But for modern audiences, it's an amusing reminder that even the most beloved classics aren't perfect. The magic of It's a Wonderful Life lies in its ability to transport viewers into the heart of Bedford Falls, a town so convincingly crafted that it feels like a real slice of small-town America. Every detail, from the snow-covered streets to the holiday decorations, was carefully designed to capture the charm of a bygone era. But as picture-perfect as it all seems, there's one glaring mistake hidden in plain sight. If you look closely during a key scene, a car that simply doesn't belong in the 1940s can be spotted in the background. A modern vehicle, likely parked near the studio lot, momentarily breaks the illusion, slipping into frame for a brief second. It's a blink, and you'll miss it detail, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. And in a strange way, it adds an unexpected layer of irony. While George Bailey struggles with his past, a car from the future lurks just outside, as if time itself refuses to stand still. Continuity mistakes like this happen more often than you'd think, and It's a Wonderful Life is filled with subtle errors that only the sharpest-eyed viewers catch. One of the most amusing happens near the film's emotional climax. George Bailey rushes into the building and loan office, a Christmas wreath draped over his arm. He sets it down on a table before grabbing the phone in a frenzy. But in the very next shot, the wreath is mysteriously back on his arm, as if it had never left. Nobody touches it. Nobody moves it. It just appears out of nowhere. Some fans joke that Clarence, George's guardian angel, had a little fun with the scene, playfully altering reality in his own angelic way. After all, if he can rewrite time itself, moving a Christmas wreath is child's play. But one of the most noticeable blunders happens in one of the film's most intense moments. Overwhelmed with stress, George snaps, kicking objects, shouting, and running his hands through his hair in frustration. It's a raw and heartbreaking moment, showcasing James Stewart's remarkable performance. But then, in the very next shot, something strange happens. His hair, which was a messy tangle just seconds before, is suddenly neat and perfectly combed. The shift is so obvious that it pulls some viewers out of the moment. This likely happened because of multiple takes, with Stewart resetting his look between shots, but someone on set overcorrected, accidentally making George's breakdown look oddly polished. It's an amusing detail, but it doesn't take away from the power of the scene. If anything, it reminds us just how difficult it is to maintain perfect continuity in the heat of an emotional performance. One of the film's smallest yet most fascinating mistakes happens during a childhood flashback. Young Mary leans in and whispers to young George inside Mr. Gower's drugstore. A sweet moment, foreshadowing their future love story. But right there on the counter is something that doesn't belong. A piece of tape, meant as a marker for actors to hit their exact spot for the best lighting and camera angles. These markers are common in Hollywood productions, but this one was accidentally left in the final cut. Today, digital effects would easily erase it, but in 1946, fixing a mistake like this would have required a full reshoot, something the production simply didn't have time for. In a way, this tiny error offers a rare, behind-the-scenes glimpse into Hollywood's golden age, a reminder of the craftsmanship behind these classic films. But perhaps the most jarring continuity error happens in George Bailey's lowest moment. After everything goes wrong, he crashes his car into a tree outside Martini's bar. The first time we see the wreckage, the car is straight against the tree, both headlights intact. But in the very next shot, something's off. The car has shifted slightly, and one of its headlights is mysteriously missing. It's an odd inconsistency, especially in such an important scene. Some speculate that this happened due to reshoots or technical difficulties on set, but no official explanation has ever been given. What we do know is that filming this scene was no easy task. Despite the movie's winter setting, this scene was shot in the blistering summer heat of 1946, with temperatures soaring past 90 degrees. The production team had to work through sweltering conditions to create the illusion of a snowy, frozen Bedford Falls. The fake snow, made from foamite, soap flakes, water, and sugar, was so realistic that it won a technical award from the Academy. But the intense heat and the difficulty of handling artificial snow may have contributed to small continuity errors, like the shifting car. Yet, instead of ruining the experience, these little mistakes add character to It's a Wonderful Life. They remind us that films of this era were crafted with real sets, practical effects, and passionate performances, without the safety net of digital corrections. Even its most glaring errors have become part of the movie's charm. Take, for instance, the moment when Clarence jumps into the freezing river, forcing George to save him. As George swims toward him, Clarence yells for help. But something doesn't quite add up. His mouth stays shut while the cries are heard. The audio and the visuals don't sync at all, making the moment unintentionally strange. This likely happened because, back in 1946, recording live sound outdoors, especially near water, wasn't always reliable. Many lines were re-recorded in a studio and added in later, but in this case, the timing wasn't quite right. It's a small mistake, but one that sharp-eyed viewers notice right away. Hollywood never stops surprising us, and just when you think you've heard it all, another shocking revelation changes everything. One of the most talked-about moments recently was a confession that sent waves through the industry. Something so unexpected that even longtime fans were left speechless. This revelation brought back memories of a time when Hollywood was all about glitz and glamour. But behind the scenes, the reality was often much darker. It's a reminder that no matter how perfect a celebrity's life seems, there's always a hidden struggle lurking beneath the surface. One such star who has been making headlines is someone who once ruled the industry, but is now facing an uphill battle. It's a heartbreaking twist for a celebrity who was once celebrated for their undeniable talent and charisma. Their financial struggles have become public knowledge, and the contrast between their past success and their current reality is hard to ignore. Just a few years ago, they were gracing magazine covers, attending the most prestigious events, and living a life most could only dream of. But now, things have taken a dramatic turn, proving once again that fame doesn't guarantee lifelong security. Then, there's the unexpected news that caught everyone off guard, an announcement that no one saw coming. It involves a beloved figure, someone who has been in the public eye for decades, but has always managed to keep their personal life out of the spotlight. However, this latest development has changed everything, shedding light on a secret that had been carefully hidden for years. Fans are reeling, trying to process what this means for the future, while insiders hint that this is only the beginning of a much bigger story. It's moments like these that remind us just how unpredictable Hollywood can be, with even the most carefully crafted images unraveling in an instant. And if that wasn't enough, another major star is facing intense backlash after a series of revelations that have resurfaced. This is someone who was once adored by millions, a name that was synonymous with success. But now, their reputation is being questioned, their past decisions coming under scrutiny in a way that no one could have anticipated. What makes this even more shocking is the fact that for years they were seen as untouchable, someone whose career was built on a foundation of respect and admiration. Now, everything hangs in the balance, and the question remains, can they make a comeback? Or is this the end of an era? As these stories unfold, it's impossible not to think about how drastically things can change in Hollywood. One moment, a star is on